Hey Theo, I saw your YouTube video on jQuery 4 release. I thought you might find it interesting that after using every framework under the sun, I decided to write the most complicated front-end app of my career in jQuery, Pewter.com. It really shocks people, and the shock value alone is worth it for me. It's going to be open source soon. Well, it's not soon, it's today. Pewter.com has been open sourced, and Pewter.com is not your usual web app. It's not really an app, it's an operating system, built entirely in HTML and jQuery. What the hell? Let's dig in, because this is actually one of the more interesting projects I've seen recently. Pewter has most of the things you would want out of an operating system. A code editor, which is actually VS Code, like actually VS Code. They even have Jupyter Notebook support built into. They have MS Paint, but not MS anymore. We'll call this JQ Paint. I think that's fair. You have full window management, where you can actually open up multiple apps. I can even allow my webcam. Hi, nerds. And this is all not just in the browser. This is all written entirely with jQuery. What the hell? Someone made Half-Life. That is so absurd. That is Half-Life in the browser as an app in the operating system in the browser. I can't. Who put Windows XP in the jQuery operating system? This is obviously not actually XP. This is a web-based simulation of XP. But holy shit, this is hilarious. This is so faithful. And I can open up my code editor right next to it. How nice is that? Got my Windows XP, I got my VS Code, all inside of my Arc browser. A Bodhi Photoshop? It's just a Photo P. This is a Photo P iframe inside of a Windows XP mock iframe inside of Pewter. So yeah, please subscribe before you go. Let's take a look at the code base, see what they're up to, and do our best to learn a little bit more, because I'm actually really excited about what they're building. And not just because it's like, oh, operating system in the cloud, but there's actually some really cool stuff happening here. Pewter's a privacy-first personal cloud to keep all your files, apps, and games in one secure place, accessible from anywhere at any time. You can make an account, you have cloud storage. It's kind of like a layer on top of something like Dropbox, conceptually. It also has the ability to build and install applications, games, and other things within it. There's a whole app store and ecosystem built in, a full dev center where you can publish and install new applications. So cool. Pewter's an advanced open source desktop environment in the browser, designed to be feature-rich, exceptionally fast, and highly extensible. It can be used to build remote desktop environments or serve as an interface for cloud storage services, remote servers, web hosting platforms, and more. One of many notable pieces here is that Pewter isn't TypeScript. All JS, no TS at all. It's a choice, especially for an operating system. We also look at their dependencies, because there are not very many. You have a few deps. Chalk for the CLI. That's what Chalk's for, right? Terminal string styling. Yep. You have Clean CSS, which is a plugin for dealing with CSS, a well-tested CSS minifier. HTML entities. Fastest HTML entities encode and decode library. Webpack. I don't want to talk about Webpack. Express, really simple, minimal web framework for hosting backends in JavaScript. No daemon, which is basically necessary for doing dev in a Node app. Uglify for parsing and minifying your JS. It's a lot of better options now, but it's fine to use that, whatever. And then more Webpack. And that's it. I'm not here to meme. I actually think building something like this with jQuery is really cool. You cannot convince me this isn't the most cursed shit. This is terrifying. Is this Unix compatible? I mean, I'm running Unix and I got it to open, so yes. So the way script tags are added is they append to the HTML the script tag they want. H plus equals script window.pewter GUI enabled equals true. You'll see there's a lot of this throughout, where they put script tags and then they programmatically define things to put in that JSON blobs. Who needs a bundler when you can just make really big strings? Let's be real. I don't even know what they're using Webpack for at this point, if they're building all of this themselves this way. And of course, at the end, the HTML call. This is a very interesting way to architect a project. Let's find one that we can get the final string for. Generate dev HTML. This sounds right. Cool. Let's load that again and see the console output, which I'm sure is going to be beautiful. Wonderful. This is almost entirely just images being embedded with that HTML here. Work of art. Beautiful. H is doc type, HTML, head, yada, yada, yada. And then a giant pile of link tags. And then the giant pile of embedded assets, all the icons and everything. Pretty crazy way to load assets by appending strings. That, I'll admit, I've never seen before. If file ends with .png, h plus equals window.icon file, so this is the name of the file, equals data image png base64 and the base64 data of that image. This is the craziest asset loading I've ever seen in my life. What? So why are we so deep here? Why not use a modern framework? I could make my own theories, but I'd rather let them speak for themselves. I think they've done a good job of explaining why. Here. Why isn't Pewter built with React, Angular, Vue, etc.? For performance reasons, Pewter is built with vanilla JavaScript and jQuery. Additionally, we'd like to avoid complex abstractions and to remain in control of the entire stack as much as possible. Also, partly inspired by some of our favorite projects that are not built with frameworks like VS Code, Photopea, and OnlyOffice. This is a good call out. I will say that most existing frameworks and tools were built with the assumption that you're rendering relatively static elements in divs in like a linear fashion on a page. Sadly, I have a lot of experience with this because I've built ModView at Twitch. If you're not already familiar, this whole UI is super dynamic. I can take any element, like my little stream preview, drag it and drop it there, move it back, swap what's where, drag anything around anywhere at any point in time, and it's expected to just work. React did not help me here at all. In fact, React kind of got in the way when I built this because the separation of the DOM, the JavaScript behaviors, and the actual thing that you render is just such a big gap that React got in the way as much as it helped here. I will say the performance argument isn't my favorite simply because for anything like this, you're going to break most of the slow parts out of the framework anyways and do those externally. Like if you're using React use states everywhere for all of your like positioning logic and shit, absolutely that's not going to work. But if you're using React effectively as a way to template and pass shapes of templates and things around, it can be really powerful for that. It's effectively what we had to do with ModView, where I took all of these widgets that exist, I render all of them in a little corner, an invisible div that never makes it to the real DOM, and then I use portals to render them wherever they actually need to be. So you can move the portaled windows around and the React component gets thrown to there, and then you're effectively opting out of the whole React render tree when you move things around. Worked great. People are saying solid would be good for this. The issue is that when I move one of these elements from here to here, I want the state to stay because this element exists in one place. Now it's another place, but I don't want to lose the state when I move it. I'll just show the example. Let's make a quick sandbox for this because I think this is actually worthwhile. A weird tangent for this video, but who cares? You guys get the point. Basic counter, count, set count as use state. I'm going to copy paste this guy, rename the original to counter. And in here, we're going to change things up a little bit. I'm going to try rendering counter first. Cool. We all know how components and inheritance work. This is nice, basic, you get the point. Here's the things that are interesting though. If I have a div wrapping this, and let's say I have a span in here, and says hi. Nothing suspicious here. Counts does what you expect. We're going to add a little bit of complexity. Const is above, set is above, equals use state false. I want to move counter up or down depending on if is above is true or false or not. So we'll do is above and counter. And then below we'll do not is above and counter. I need to add a button at the bottom. Toggle is above. And this needs to do something. So on click equals set is above to be the opposite of is above. So now when we click this, it moves that above and below. Here's where things get painful. Count is now 5. Count is now 0. The element isn't being moved. It's being deleted and re-rendered. So if I want to drag this somewhere else, it has its own state. You lose it. There's a couple solutions to this problem. Okay, there's a lot of solutions to this problem, but they require you to effectively escape from React. The first one would be move the state outside of the counter using something like Zustand or some global state manager. You could also move the state to this component instead and have to pass the functions to the counter. We could render the counter as an entity in here. So const counter equals use memo. No, that doesn't even work. Good to know. Yeah. Once your component is in the DOM, you're screwed. You can't even memoize the component as I tried here quick. I was pretty sure you couldn't. Wanted to confirm. You can't. If you want a component's state to stay consistent, you want to keep that component rendered in your DOM because React binds its state once the thing is actually rendered. I can use keys. Key equals never change. That will not work. Oh, wow. That actually works. Did not expect that. That is silly. Again, React is a strange framework when it comes to these things. By adding a key here, the state now is persistent. If I delete that key, it's no longer persistent. Yeah. React is a framework. Outside of the memo with the key, I don't think that will work. Oh no. That is really silly. That breaks it though. Okay, here's where we get to the fun. If these aren't in the exact same location, if these aren't children of the same parent, it breaks. So if I move this here, count stays. If I move this out, since they're being tracked by a different parent, breaks. React. Ta-da. Yeah. So with that in mind, you're not going to be managing your state inside of React. And this is a problem in other frameworks as well. You can't just switch to Svelte or Solid and expect this to go away. This type of composition is not easy when your elements regularly change where they're rendered. That's the key here. If you're changing where things are rendered, React stops being particularly helpful. Someone pointed out correctly in chat, you can move the windows without moving them in the DOM with CSS transforms and Z-index. Yes. Good luck synchronizing that with the JavaScript, with a drag and drop, and with the state, and re-renders, and getting that all to come together. It is not fun. It is really not fun. The solution we had for ModView, which I go in depth on in my video all about how I built this, is that all of these elements are all rendered in one place. And then all of the things you're moving, they aren't actually the React components. They're portals that those components get rendered out to. So the components themselves never change their location as far as React knows. But you have to build those types of things in order to solve this problem. And if you're already not fond of React, not only do you have to learn React and learn it well, you have to become a bit of a React wizard in order to make something like this work without having to deal with crazy state issues. And again, only possible because I abused portals in this implementation. So yeah, you can't just snap your fingers and switch frameworks and have this problem solved. Once your DOM and your state are massively out of sync, which is the case when you can drag your window around, those solutions no longer are helping you that much. And you're no longer really using React as a way to manage your DOM tree. Instead, you're using React as a way to template out HTML. I think they probably should have used some form of HTML templating in here, just from what I have read thus far. Because all of the things they're doing here with strings and H tags and adding HTML constantly like this isn't just fragile, it's like comically so. There are so many ways in which a dumb, simple mistake or a thing being moved above or below where it's supposed to be could entirely break this solution. But at the same time, how fucking cool is it that it works? That this mess of appending random HTML and JavaScript tags to the utter chaos that is this service and this site actually fully works. Yeah. So also pointed out, it's weird they're using template strings but still concatenating. Yeah, but they're concatenating to this H thing on top. Not everything needs to be a template string. Just helps with the formatting of things in your IDEs. I want to find this GUI call. It has to come from somewhere. Okay, here's the script that loads the GUI function that then gets called here when the load is complete. So window.add event listener load function calls GUI. So when the other scripts are done loading, it runs the GUI script, and then that takes over from there. Theoretically, we should be able to find the GUI. Cool. Window.init GUI. How long is this file? Across 80 JS files, there are 60,000 lines of code and 14,000-ish lines of comments. That's insane. Goddamn. Cool. Window.gui is an async function, options, Window.gui origin, options, or GUI origin. Cool. That's where the GUI comes from. Await load script. Where does that even come from? Is load script just a JS primitive? Is that just a thing? Can you just call load script? jQuery has load script. That's where that comes from. I just want to see more of what it's using jQuery for. I'm sure helpers will have a bunch. Their element is jQuery this. Settings is jQuery.extend. We're still using var. How often are we using var in this code base? 4,957 instances of var. 800 of let, 1,400 of const. Load script and load CSS are custom functions that he implemented here. Turn new promise. Script is document create element script. Source is URL. Async is true. Option is module. We apply that. Options that defer. This is a custom script tag loader attached to the window so that you can do a chaotic shit with it. That's crazy. A similar load CSS as well. Here's how the drag and drop actually works to compare. Good old math.absolutes. Oh, what is this syntax with the or there? What? I see why he's not using prettier. What? And the spaces on both sides of the if. This is one of the craziest formats I've ever seen. Like, at the very, very least, that's fine. I feel like I'm looking into an alternative timeline right now. Only show drag helpers if the item has been moved more than 5 pixels. Other selected items, yada yada. Draggable count badge. Top's event page Y, left's event page X plus 10. Then we go through all of the other selected items and move those individually. And we do that by taking their position and appending in the CSS. So we're changing the value of the left key to this new thing. So here's the actual parent for that. The positioning is all based on where I've moved it. You can see the positioning changes, and like it's not going to be as apparent in my video because I'm recording at 30 FPS, but you can see it lagging behind the cursor because JavaScript has to run in order to change where this is located on every frame. Chaos. Close DevTools, it'll be fast. I promise you, when I used it earlier, it wasn't. It's still not. It still lags just as much. And it does on the real site too. So yeah, it's lagging just as much here. It's Arc. It's still lagging just as much. Gabriel pointed out that positioning is not GPU accelerated, so it's all CPU. That's part of the problem. I think the big problem here is specifically that it's handled by JavaScript running on every frame to change the CSS, which is a little chaotic, to put it kindly. I want to make sure when I searched for var in here that I wasn't doing all the jQuery stuff. So to take back my earlier statement about all the vars, most of those are in source lib, which is jQuery UI primarily, which is embedded in the project instead of being loaded externally. I get it. Only 53 vars are defined in this project. I feel a lot less bad about that. But are the request animation frames? Okay, UI window JS. Request animation frame. Change the window's opacity to 1 and scale to 1 to create an opening effect. Set a timeout to run after the transition duration. This is just for animating a window opening. Interesting. So all the rest is handled by external drag and drop stuff. Fascinating. I will say that Pewter itself isn't the only thing that's come out of this. There have been a handful of these additional JavaScript projects and tools that have come out as a result. KV and Phoenix are both very interesting. KV is a really fast module for in-memory caching in JavaScript. It's a really quick way to grab values in a giant JS project. It's heavily inspired by Redis and memcached. It's capable of handling multiple data types, including strings, lists, sets, sorted sets, hashes, and a bunch of other stuff. Really nice to have something like this that's contained. And there's also Phoenix, which is a pure JS shell. It was built for Pewter so that you could have a terminal within it. You can see here, the Phoenix shell. We have our own file management system. I can CD to desktop. LS, there's something here. Touch, hello.txt. That's nuts. And this is its own separate open source project that you could use for other things. Ooh, rm-rf. Type error, can I read property of undefined? There's something about getting that error in a terminal that's particularly funny to me. I am thoroughly impressed. I would not have made a lot of the technical decisions this project made, but I also would never have made this. And I think there is a significant difference in how my brain works and how the creator of something like Pewter's brain works. And that's cool. It's not a bad thing. Worth mentioning. Been in progress for 3 years and over 1 million users. The circle's finally complete. Now, of course, you want to use a browser within Pewter as well. Browser and browser OS and OS and virtual machine. Birth and death of JavaScript being linked. Love that. Obviously, a top call out on HN. Very relatable. jQuery. I cannot imagine how difficult it is to not break this when you make the slightest change. Hats off for managing with vanilla JavaScript and jQuery. The best thing about React for me is not having to worry about breaking the DOM or messing up with event handlers because some jQuery line somewhere obscure is probably doing something funky that is really difficult to track down. Yeah, I don't miss this in the slightest. And I don't agree here. It's not that hard not to. It's once your code base is at a certain size, you're going to do that a bunch. That's all I have on this one. Hate to end quick. Okay, it's not quick. It's a long video. But I'm going to go play some Half-Life jQuery edition. Good seeing you as always. Until next time, peace nerds.